And he really wanted Roy Huggins to come back for Brett Maverick, but wasn't able to swing it. And he said basically the Rockford Files was Maverick modern day. How do you two shady grifters, roaming around the country having fun and making money in today's world? Well, you can't, unless he's a private eye. And he basically made Maverick PI when he did Rockford. And I think and I talked to Roy Huggins about it later, and Roy Huggins said, well, if I had done Brett Maverick, the first thing I would have done differently is not sit him on his ass in some town. Mm-hmm. But we know why James Garner did that. He didn't want to get off his ass. He wanted to stay in the studio every week. He was tired of running around in his Firebird beating people up.
Hi, I'm Rob Ward. Welcome to A Word on Westerns. Today we have a special guest. As usual, we have a special guest, but this one is a writer, producer. You've seen a lot of his things on television. You've seen Diagnosis Murder and Monk. He did Monk for the longest time. He even wrote about 8 or 9 novels about Monk, the series. But he's written a novel called Calico about a time traveler who goes west, and it's fascinating. He's always loved Westerns. This is his first. Lee Goldberg is his name. He's a New York Times best-selling author. Let's give a big hand for Lee.
Hi there.
Hey, cowboy.
Brought you a present?
Well, this must be it.
So how does my cowboy hat look?
I think it looks great.
You should, because you picked it out for me.
Well, that was years ago.
Yes, it was years ago. And even though my head is enlarged with my ego, I can still fit in the hat.
Well, since we did that so long ago, I want to know, why does it look so new?
I rarely wear it. I mean, it doesn't fit in LA. I can't walk into meetings at the network wearing the cowboy hat.
I've done that.
Well, yeah, you can get away with it.
Well, nothing.
I'm a California Jew. I look ridiculous in a cowboy hat. I mean, this shirt I bought when I was with you in Billings, Montana.
Looks good. You like his outfit?
Isn't it great?
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to stand in for Sam Elliott now.
So tell me about your love of Westerns.
It's true. I grew up watching Gunsmoke. Mm-hmm. It's a show that deserves far more acclaim and recognition today than it gets, which is zero now. But in my mind, John Meston is up there with Rod Serling, Gene Roddenberry, Patty Chayefsky as one of the all-time great television writers. But I think you and I are among the few people alive today who knows who John Meston was.
People who watch this show know who John Meston is. He created Gunsmoke, and his character names for people were the best,
terrific.
Too.
But he wrote such wonderful stories, and they weren't the typical Western. They were hard-edged, they were brutal, they were tragic, and sometimes Matt Dillon was dead wrong. Sometimes he was a psychopath. And the amazing thing about Gunsmoke is it didn't get worse over time. It got better. Mm-hmm. I would argue that the show in its 20th year was every bit as good as the original black and white half hours in the 50s.
I would argue no, you're wrong.
Well, we can have that. We've had that argument. But there are some episodes in that final season, final 2 seasons, in fact, that were really, really good.
Well, the show did develop wonderful characters, and John Mantley, when he kind of took it over and kept it going, turned it into more about the guest stars and made those stories, like you said, tragic and wonderful. But the radio shows, those were hard, and that was John Meston.
I am such a geek when it comes to Gunsmoke that I will listen to a William Conrad Western and then watch the television episode. One of the earliest comparisons I did was listening to the William Conrad No Indians episode, mm-hmm. and then watching the television version. Both are brutal, but in different ways, and both are harder edged than anything else that was on television at the time. I learned a lot about writing, a lot about character, watching Gunsmoke. And in fact, when you mentioned that they started featuring guest stars more in later years, it was a lesson in how to establish a character really quickly, mm-hmm. within a few seconds of them stepping on screen, with a few lines of dialogue. And those lessons have carried with me through my television and book careers.
The shows, the radio shows particularly, how they could develop something so quickly in 25 minutes, and the arc and the characters and the deaths and the tragedy and the humor. There was a lot of humor in those too. Then they took, when the show went on the air as a TV show, they took those half-hour John Meston episodes and adapted them into television half hours, and they really are terrific.
They are terrific.
Another Western series, and this is an interesting thing because Lee sat with Maverick creator, producer Roy Huggins and watched Every single Maverick episode.
Every single Maverick. Yeah, I was doing an article for a long-lost magazine called Video Review, The Complete History of Maverick. And I reached out, this is before the days of having TV shows on video cassette and so available on streaming and what have you. I reached out to Roy Huggins because I wanted to interview him about the episodes. And he said, have you seen them? I said, yes, over the years, it's been sometimes I've seen some of them. Well, he had just been fired from Blue Thunder, the TV series adaptation, and was just sitting in his office playing out the rest of his deal. So he said, why don't you come down to the Burbank studios and I will screen the episodes for you and we could discuss them.
In 35 millimeter?
No, they were on some sort of video cassette, as I recall. We were in his office, and we had lunch delivered. It was a dream for me because I was such a huge Roy Huggins fan, not just of Maverick, but all the television work that he had done. So to be able to spend all this time with him, and I wish to God I had kept the audio cassettes, but they've not held up over time. They've demagnetized in my garage. But he sat there and he screened every single episode of Maverick, talked about the genesis of the episodes, told behind-the-scenes stuff. And then he said, this is off the record. Started trashing people at Warner Brothers and talking about all sorts of minutiae.
He's dead now. What did he really say?
Oh, and actually, if you want to know some of what he said, I interviewed Roy Huggins for, I think, 5 or 6 hours on video for the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. And you can see it on the Archive of Television. I think it's emmystv.org site on YouTube. But he and I spent all those hours together, and it was people throw this word around, but it was really a master class in television, getting to sit with him and have him explain all the intricacies of the episode. I wish they could put that on as the narrative track to a collection of Maverick, DVDs or something.
What's the most important thing you learned from him?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the most important thing I learned is character is more important than plot. And you think of that classic Maverick episode, Shady Deals at Sunny Acres, where Maverick wins all this money at the poker table. He does the smart thing. He puts it in the bank, sleeps well that night, goes to the bank the next morning, and the banker says, what deposit? You didn't deposit any money.
And has the great line, if you can't trust your banker, who can you trust?
And Maverick says, I'm going to get it back. And he spends the rest of the episode sitting in a rocking chair whittling while his friends pull off this massive con to get his money back. But throughout the episode, the banker keeps walking by Maverick, who's whittling in the rocking chair. How's it going, Maverick? Getting your money back? And no idea that he's being swindled at the same time.
And the banker is played by John Daner, one of the finest actors. In fact, he's in almost every episode of the radio show. And he then became Paladin on the radio adaptation, which is backwards for most of the shows.
He also became a regular on Young Maverick when CBS did one of the reboots many years later. But no one remembers the actual con. But what you remember is the beauty of that structure, of the character. That stuck with me. And some of the great Rockford Files episodes that Roy Huggins and Steve Cannell did were more about the character than the con or the detective story. So when I sit down to write a novel or do a TV series or do a TV episode, I always start with character, and the plot is a way to explore the character and put the character into conflict and bring out the inherent humor or drama of the situation.
Roy Huggins discovered Jim Garner in one of the hour-long Warner Brothers Presents a Conflict or something like that, and then developed Maverick around him. And you sat with Garner and talked with him quite a bit. What was he like? Why was he so magical on screen?
I think because he has this ability to appear natural even when he's doing rehearsed dialogue. He just seems like an everyman in an extraordinary situation. And he had a keen awareness of his own appeal and why his characters worked and why they wouldn't and what sort of vehicles were right for him. And we talked, for that article, I talked to him not just about Maverick, but also about the Maverick movie, New Maverick, that was a pilot for Young Maverick. And then I talked to him about Brett Maverick. And he really wanted Roy Huggins to come back for Brett Maverick, but wasn't able to swing it. And he said basically the Rockford Files was Maverick modern day. How do you two shady grifters, roaming around the country having fun and making money in today's world? Well, you can't, unless he's a private eye. And he basically made Maverick PI when he did Rockford. And I talked to Roy Huggins about it later, and Roy Huggins said, well, if I had done Brett Maverick, the first thing I would have done differently is not sit him on his ass in some town. Mm-hmm. But we know why James Garner did that. He didn't want to get off his ass. He wanted to stay in the studio every week. He was tired of running around in his Firebird beating people up. He just wanted to stay on the soundstage and not have to do that much work. And who can blame him at that age with the bad knees and everything else?
I know it, but he sure was charming in everything that he did. The love of Westerns that you have, I know you've for years been talking about doing a Western novel. You came up with this concept of a time travel.
You've given away the big twist.
There's no
Spoiler
twist.
alert, spoiler alert.
That's why it's selling, is because it's a time-traveling Western. It's
Well,
so
in a way,
great.
it's true. I mean, the book is a modern-day police procedural and a period Western in 1883 that share the same dead body. And the only way I was able to write this Western was to find a modern framework for it, a modern-day view looking backward.
You mean the only way you could sell it?
The only way I could sell it.
Okay.
Because I'm going to say something that's make everyone in this audience groan and cry and be upset.
Don't upset them.
The fact is, in the publishing world, the Western is on publishing hospice care. If you look at Barnes & Noble, it barely takes up a quarter of one shelf. It's not a burgeoning genre in the Western field. Now, you can get away with some literary Westerns, Larry McMurtry, who's passed away, but still there are some that get away with it. You have the big hits on TV with Yellowstone and 1883. But for some reason, the published Western appeals to a higher demographic, which has been sort of the story of my life. I was the executive producer of Diagnosis Murder. We were in the top 20 every week, and the network wasn't happy because we had an older demographic. It's just, I'm used to that. It's been the story of my life.
Mm-hmm. Well, Westerns do appeal to an older demographic, and we are that.
But as far as my book, Calico,
Oh,
available
yeah.
in stores now.
Tell us about this.
As far as Calico goes, but let's talk more about Gunsmoke, shall we? No, as far as...
we could. Well, let's talk about Bakersfield. Why would you pick Bakersfield?
I didn't pick Bakersfield. It's set in Barstow, but you're close.
Okay.
They both start with a B.
It's way out
He
there.
gained the weight, and suddenly he's not all there. I mean, it's the cowboy hat. You need a cowboy hat. The reason I was able to make this book work, and I think the reason it's been successful and gotten the wide readership and critical praise that it has, is I brought a modern-day look at the Western. So by taking someone from our time period and putting them in the Old West in 1883, it allows us to look at some of the Western tropes and cliches and stereotypes in a fresh way. And the fact is, and I also make fun of time travel movies, because in most time travel stories, the hero or protagonist is an expert in history, knows every detail of the time period he's about to land in, and it's always in the middle of a big historical event. Abraham Lincoln's about to get shot. There's about to be the earthquake in San Francisco, the Chicago fire. Oh, crap, I'm on the Titanic. It's never just in the middle of nowhere in 1883 where none of your present-day knowledge will help you.
Isn't it the same now in Barstow?
Yeah, that's the part of it. But see, that you laugh, but that's part of the appeal of why I said it there. Because it's a place where time hasn't changed. And when my guy ends up in Calico, which was a booming silver town in 1883, but he knows it's going to be a dead-end tourist attraction ghost town in 2023, he also knows that the only thing that's going to change in this patch of the Mojave is the freeway and the military base. And is it Crazy Eddie or Big Eddie's, candy shop, gas station, and that's it. Otherwise, it's going to be untouched. So he's able to stay there and know he won't be affecting his own future if he never leaves where he is. But what I wanted to get to in doing this Western was poking fun at the ridiculous things we've come to accept. I love Gunsmoke, so did you. We love the Randolph Scott Westerns. But they're in perfectly pressed, clean shirts. Their bandanas look wonderful. Their hats look like mine. Everyone's teeth is perfect. The West was an awful place, Rob. There was sewage running down the street, piles of horse crap, urine. People had terrible teeth, terrible skin. They didn't bathe for weeks, and when they did it in third, fourth, or fifth water.
Tell me again why I want to read this.
It's what happens when a person from today is forced to who has no special skills, who isn't a Navy SEAL or a doctor or a cop, just an ordinary guy, has to find a way to live in 1883 with what he knows today, and it's not that easy. But meanwhile, in present day, I have a disgraced female cop who's been exiled to Barstow. Her career is over, and she stumbles across some bones from 1883, but they have implants from 2022.
So it's a great murder mystery
It's
taking
a great
place.
murder mystery,
Yeah.
And it's a way to do a modern-day police procedural. It's the framework for exploring not just Westerns, but the time travel thriller genre, and also some of the tropes and cliches of police procedurals, which I know well, having written hundreds of them, both in TV and books.
What are some of the best-selling books in the New York Times list that you've had?
Oh, that I've had?
Yeah.
Just some of them.
Yes.
I'll try to whittle the list down because there have been so many extraordinary successes.
Isn't he a fun guy?
I wrote 5 novels with Janet Ivanovich, the Fox and O'Hare series, and I've written a bunch of Eve Ronan thrillers. There's Lost Hills, Bone Canyon, and a book called True Fiction about a novelist who finds his own fantasies coming true, and he has to become the action hero he writes about, and many, many more.
Well, what's interesting about this is similar to Maverick, is the humor involved with the murder mystery that's going on. There are laugh-out-loud sequences in this book.
My trademark, Rob, is that I have a lot of humor in my police procedurals, and it's not slapstick and it's not sitcom humor. I'm a firm believer that in even our worst situations in life, I don't know about you, but even the saddest, most tragic, painful situations in my life, there's been humor. There's been surprisingly funny moments. And I think humor humanizes people, humanizes characters. So when I watch a Western or a crime drama or read a Western or read a crime drama and there's no humor, it doesn't feel realistic to me. It just doesn't feel right because we all have humor in our life. It's a coping mechanism. It's a way people get through the day when things are rough. It's a way you and I make fun of each other, rib each other in our casual friendship.
About that hat.
About this hat. He made me get this hat. But my wife said, "You're not going to wear that hat."
It looks great. It looks good.
"You're not going to wear that hat in public, are you?" No. Just on television.
His wife is French and used to work with me at Orion or Filmways.
ITC.
ITC, whatever. I've had a lot of jobs.
A production company.
She's great, and she's so funny, and she keeps you well-fed.
Thank you. You had to get the well-fed in there. Just because you gained 10 pounds doesn't mean you need to point out everyone else who's gained 10 pounds. You do have the de-chinning, de-cheeking feature on this camera, right?
Oh, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Good.
Robbie takes care of all that.
I wasn't going to do this show unless you promised me that.
So back to some of the other Westerns, other than Gunsmoke, which we loved, and Have Gun Will Travel. What are some of the other landmark Westerns that you remember growing up watching?
Oh, growing up. I watched Bonanza, I watched The Big Valley, I watched The Westerner, I watched them all. I devoured them. And, as I grew up, I got more critical about what I was watching. Now I can't stand to watch Bonanza, don't get me started. But, Deadwood,
come on.
No.
There's a lot of problems with that show.
A lot of problems with that show. The Rifleman. I watched them all. I watched the Oregon Trail. I watched the ones that were short-lived because I learned so much from them. And frankly, one of the reasons I wrote this book is I had a signing for one of my Eve Ronan police procedurals. And a woman came in to have me sign a book, and she mentioned how much she loves me because I write such good Westerns. And I said, "I've never written a Western." She said, "No, every one of your book is a Western. Every book you've written has been a Western." "Really? I don't remember any cowboy hats or horses or tumbleweed or anything remotely Western." She says, "It's the attitude. It's the iconography. It's the way they behave. It's their moral code. If you took these stories, you could put them in the Old West if you took all the modern day stuff out of them." And I look back at them and I realized she was right. Not only that, but one of my characters actually wears a cowboy hat. How more on the nose could I be and how could I miss it?
It's a good thing she dropped by.
Yes. So I wrote this book during the pandemic.
Well, before the pandemic started, you had jumped into the internet publishing before it seemed to me than other people did, finding out-of-print books and offering them, making them available. How's that going?
Well, it started with, I had a big backlist of out-of-print books. So when the Kindle came along, I got the rights back to my out-of-print backlist, republished them, and they were enormously successful. So a lot of other authors came to me and said, "Hey, can I buy you a drink, take you out to dinner? How can I take my backlist and monetize it?" And I began thinking, this could be a business plan.
Let me take those.
I'll do it for you. And so I started with my good friend Joel Goldman, a publishing company called Brash Books 10 years ago. And it specializes in crime novels, thrillers, spy novels that have been previously published to wide acclaim and awards, but have fallen out of print. And also brand new crime thrillers and whodunits and police procedurals. We've published, I think, 300 or 400 titles in the last 10 years. And 3 years ago, we did a new imprint called Cutting Edge for other genres, and we started republishing classic Westerns, but also some new Westerns, including one called The Comanche Kid by James Robert Daniels that was a finalist for the Spur Award last year, and the sequel Jane Fury, which are hugely successful. I've been astonished how well they've done. Because I warned him, hey, Westerns aren't selling so well. I'm going to publish this because I love it, but don't get your hopes up. And the books have exploded because of word of mouth.
Well, and also some of the covers make a big difference. I know the one that won several awards when we were up in Montana.
Oh, yes, that's another book I published called Double Wide that won Best First Novel and Best Contemporary Western by Leo Banks.
And had an Airstream trailer on the cover, yes.
And well, that wasn't the Double Wide. The Airstream trailer was in a
but it was
called
a
Double
seller.
Wide. Yes, but the book was a contemporary Western, which is a way to get around the Western curse in publishing. Longmire does it.
Yeah, what do you think of the Longmires?
I love them. I mean, Craig Johnson's a friend of mine. In fact, I think the last time I wore this hat in public, besides my book signings, was when I interviewed Craig Johnson and the cast of Longmire at the Wilshire Theater some time ago for Live Talks LA. You can see that on YouTube as well. And we talked about the contemporary Western and how it works.
Oh, he's terrific. And he also, like you, has a lot of humor in his books.
Yes, and he's also a charming guy and looks great in a hat. In fact, you may be forgetting this, but at that event we went to, he was on your cheerleading squad saying, the event actually was the Spur Awards, and I was the one guy there not in a cowboy hat. And you guys are like, get a cowboy hat. I'm not going to get a cowboy hat for one event, never wear it again. But you convinced me to go to this legendary store. I ended up buying a hat that was identical to Craig Johnson.
It was Lou Talbot's.
Yes.
Yes.
And they were going out of business in Billings.
Yes.
And so there are a lot of photos on the net of me and Craig Johnson together wearing the same hat. He pulls it off better than I do because he actually has a ranch. I live in Calabasas. That's as close to a ranch as I can get.
Well, at least you don't live in Barstow.
Yes, thank God. Barstow's not too thrilled with my book.
Well, you look good in a hat. Doesn't he look good in a hat? And I want to thank you for being here, Lee.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, pal.
Gunsmoke.
Hi, I'm Rob Word. Welcome to a special edition of A Word on Westerns. This is an exclusive about Gunsmoke. No, I know you've all seen the Gunsmoke TV series, and a lot of you have probably listened to the Gunsmoke radio show. Well, the radio show was on several years before the TV show, which means that all of those wonderful scripts and characters had been fully developed before it went to television. It was April the 26th in 1951 when it premiered on CBS Radio with William Conrad, the best radio voice of all time, as Matt Dillon. He brought power to it like you can't believe. If you've never heard any of those, this is going to be a special treat. The rest of the radio cast was Parley Bear as Chester, Georgia Ellis as Miss Kitty, and Howard McNear as Doc Adams. So when it went to television in 1955, they shot a pilot using one of the scripts from the radio shows. It was called Hack Prine. It was the pilot that sold the show to CBS, and that premiered in September of 1955. But Hack Prine, the show, the episode that sold it, it didn't air until April 28th of 1956. It starred James Arness, Amanda Blake as Miss Kitty, Milburn Stone as Doc Adams, and Chester was played by Dennis Weaver. But you know all that. What would you think if I mixed those two together? And you're listening to William Conrad, and you're looking at James Arness. It's the full episode of the pilot, Hack Prine, with the audio from the radio show and frame grabs from that episode of Gunsmoke. I had a blast doing this. I've wanted to do this for a long time, and I'm glad you've joined me because we're going to experience this together. If you like what you see, let us know. I might do another one. It was a lot of work, but it was worth it for me. Let me know if it's worth it for you. Thanks for joining us. Now, let's ride with Matt Dillon to Dodge City.
Brought to you by Chesterfield, America's most popular two-way cigarette. What a pair. Chesterfield King Size at the new low price. Chesterfield Regular. Around Dodge City and in the territory on West, there's just one way to handle the killers and the spoilers, and that's with a U.S. Marshal and the smell of Gunsmoke. Gunsmoke, starring William Conrad, the transcribed story of the violence that moved west with young America, and the story of a man who moved with it.
I'm that man, Matt Dillon, United States Marshal. The first man they look for and the last they want to meet. It's a chancy job, and it makes a man watchful. And a little lonely. It was a long ride from Dodge up to Ponca Creek in the Dakota Territory, and I killed a good horse getting there. But I caught Lee Trumbull. He was asleep in a clump of willow, and I took him without a fight. We rode his horse double into Sioux Falls, but we came the rest of the way back to Dodge in style, by stagecoach. At least I thought we were traveling in style. Lee didn't seem to care much for it. In fact, he wouldn't even talk until the stage pulled into Dodge and drove up Front Street toward the plaza.
You're making a bad mistake, Marshal.
Is that so?
I didn't kill anybody.
There are two witnesses say you did, Lee.
They're lying.
Then why did you run?
Your brother Dolph, he said you was after me. That's why I run.
You'll get a trial. You can talk about it then.
I ain't gonna stand trial, Marshal. Dolph will get me out of jail before that.
Is that so? I never figured Dolph is a man to do much of anything.
You've been against us Trumbos ever since we come to Dodge, ain't you, Marshal?
Yeah, I have. Neither one of you is any good.
See what I mean?
Yeah, there's your brother Dolph now, waiting to welcome you back.
Well, how'd he know I was coming?
I wired Chester from Sioux Falls a week ago.
That bandy-legged deputy of yours?
Chester's not my deputy.
Well, he sure acts like it.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he? No, here we are.
You got my brother in there, Marshal?
Come on out, Lee.
You're going to be sorry for this.
Yeah, that's what Lee's been telling me. Come on, Lee, get on out of there.
I'm coming, Marshal. I'm coming. All right. Shoot him, Dolph. What? Don't look at me, Marshal. I didn't even draw.
No. No, you didn't, did you, Dolph?
You didn't have to kick him like that. You hurt him.
He'll get his wind back.
I got him covered, Mr. Dillon.
Hello, Chester.
Don't you try nothing like that again, Lee.
It's all right, Chester. The fight's out of him.
You want me to take Dolph's gun?
Now, that's funny. I keep forgetting. You do wear a gun, don't you, Dolph?
There's nothing wrong with wearing a gun, Marshal.
There is the way you wear one.
What do you mean?
Well, you might run into somebody who doesn't know you're afraid to use it, and he might shoot you before he found that out.
You calling me a coward, Marshal?
Now, Chester,
Yes, sir.
I'm going over to the office. When Lee here stops groaning, herd him over and lock him up, will you?
Okay.
And if Dolph gives you any trouble, shoot him.
Now, Marshal.
Get going, Dolph. Go on, move.
You'll be sorry for this. I'll make you sorry for it.
Oh, say, there's a fellow waiting for you over at the office, Mr. Dillon. He's a stranger to me, but he wanted to see you.
All right, Chester.
Oh, by the way, welcome back.
Thanks.
It's been most a month you've been gone. We sure did miss you here.
There were times when I missed being here, Chester. Don't let Lee get away from you now, huh? I'd hate to make that ride all over again.
No, sir, I won't. Oh, I sure won't. Oh, stop breathing like that, Lee, and get on your feet. You ain't hurt. Let me go.
Well...
Hello, Matt.
Hack Prine, how are you?
Good to see you. You're surprised to see me alive, huh, Matt?
Why, Hack, it's been at least 10 years, hasn't it?
Man ain't born that could kill me. Leastways, I ain't run into him yet.
Well, maybe you're just lucky.
Luckier than you, anyways. Lot luckier sometimes, is the way I recall it.
Now, you're thinking about Santa Fe. Huh?
Yeah. You wasn't very lucky that day, Matt. Hey, remember how it was? You backed into a corner with nothing but a beer bottle in your hand, and 3 of John Chisholm's drunk cowboys about to empty their guns into you.
Yeah. And then you walked in and killed every one of them.
Yeah. It was real surprised, wasn't it, Matt?
John Chisholm's been after you ever since, hasn't he, Hack?
Oh, them was just the first of Chisholm's men I've killed, Matt. Been riding with Billy the Kid till about half a year ago.
Oh? Well, why'd you quit?
Never could make out if Billy was working for or against Chisholm. Besides, didn't pay enough. Oh, but you're the one, Matt. When I got to Dodge last night, heard you was U.S. Marshal here, I just didn't believe it.
Well, being a marshal isn't that hard a job.
Oh, you can handle it, all right, I know that. What I mean is, it's kind of sudden. Find a man you used to know being a U.S. Marshal.
Well, I gotta earn my keep somehow.
Oh, sure.
Well, what are you doing at Dodge, anyway?
I don't know, Matt. I don't know yet. I've been over to Wagon Bed Springs, stretching my legs, sleeping in a bed, doing a little gambling and the like. Now, some fella here sent for me. I ain't seen him yet, but if it's a job he's got, I sure need the money.
Well, good luck with it, Hack. We'll get together later and have a drink, eh?
Straight ahead, Lee. I'd do that, though. Yeah, the Stephens was out.
What's this?
Just a prisoner.
What'd he do?
I didn't do nothing. Shut up.
What you locking him up for, Matt?
Murder?
That's bad. That's real bad.
Murder's always bad.
I don't mean that. I mean locking a man up. I couldn't stand that, Matt. I never been in jail. I never ain't gonna be.
Well, then you better stay sober around here, Hack.
And you're taking it back about that drink.
Oh, no. You'll be safe as long as you're with me.
Oh. I don't know, man. I've been around you when it wasn't so safe. I'll see you later.
Yeah, sure, Hack.
Oh. Hey, come on in, mister. I'm leaving. So long, Matt.
So long, Hack.
Marshal Dillon?
Hello, Ole. How are you?
Marshal, I got something I got to tell you. It's my duty, the way I see it.
Oh, what's the trouble?
Hello, Ole. What you doing here?
Well, I come to tell the Marshal something, Chester, but I sure don't like informing on people. You understand me, Marshal?
Well, what's it about, Ole?
Dolph Trumbo, that's what. You got his brother Lee in jail here.
We sure have. I just locked him up myself.
Well, Dolph's coming to get him out. He's over at the Alfraganza right now talking it up.
Talking what up?
Well, there's some men at the bar there, Marshal. And Dolph's buying them drinks and telling them his brother's plumb innocent, and they gotta raid the jail here and get him out.
You mean he's forming a mob?
That's what he's doing, and I don't like it. There's gonna be trouble, sure.
Ole, thanks very much for telling me this, but don't worry about the trouble. I'll put a stop to that right now. Come on, Chester.
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't you know Dolph Trumbo do something stupid like this, Mr. Dillon? Trying to form a mob to take his brother out of the jailhouse.
Well, it works sometimes, Chester.
Not in Dodge, it don't.
No, not so far, anyway. Here's the Alfraganza. Now, don't get in the way. Huh?
No, sir.
Okay.
You're involved in the
And something else. There's nothing to be afraid of, you men. You'll be led by one of the best gunmen in the whole country, I promise you that. And we'll have justice in Dodge. Once and for all. Justice. That's...
What do you want, Marshal? What are you doing here? Ole told you. I seen him sneak out. I just been talking, Marshal. No harm in talking, is there? Well, Lee's innocent anyway. He shouldn't be in jail. And I'm going to get him out, too. These men here, they're all with me. And we're going...
Quiet. Bartender, this place is closed for the rest of the day. No more liquor. And you men get out of here and don't let me find any of you together again. Not for a long time. Now get moving. Now, here, Chester, I'll pay for the beer.
You leaving, Mr. Dillon?
Oh, Kitty just came downstairs. I haven't seen her yet. I think I'll go over and say hello.
Yes, sir. Like for me to go across the street and see if they're keeping the Oliver Ganda closed?
No, it's all right. I told them they could open up again tonight.
Oh, well, thanks for the beer, Mr. Dillon.
Sure, Chet. Sure.
Welcome to Dodge, stranger.
How are you, Kitty?
Fine. I'd be even better if you brought 2 beers over instead of 1. But you can sit down anyway.
Well, you can take this one, Kitty. It's kind of warm. I don't want it.
Matt, do you suppose the day will ever come when having good manners will be a requirement for the marshal's office?
Well, if it ever does, Kitty, I don't guess they'll need marshals anymore.
Yeah, maybe you're right at that.
Well, how have you been, huh? Everything okay?
Well, I was making out pretty good, Matt, till I broke my toe.
Broke your toe?
Yep,
How'd you do that?
in the line of duty, right here in the saloon. I got tromped on dancing with a Texas cowboy. He should have been spending his trail money on red silk handkerchief and soda water instead of me. He couldn't have been over 16. Darn fool.
There's not much you can do for a broken toe, is there?
No, at least it doesn't hurt when I'm sitting down. I hear you broke up Dolph Trumbo's party at the Alafaganda this afternoon.
Oh?
Huh?
You hear just about everything, don't you, Kitty?
Men. They talk more than women. This place is full of men, day and night. You think if I closed my eyes and prayed real hard, they'd all go away?
Well, if they did, what would you do for a living?
That'll keep me awake. Say, there's your friend Dolph now. Just came in.
Huh?
There's a stranger with him, Matt.
Well, I'll be.
What's the matter? Who is he?
He's a gunman, Kitty.
That's so?
Yeah. I guess he's about the handiest man with a gun that ever hit Dodge.
So Dolph's gone and hired him a gunman. Who is he, anyway? What's his name?
He's a friend of mine, Kitty.
A friend of yours?
Yeah, a good friend. He saved my life once. But now I guess he's going to try to get it back. His name's Prine. Hack Prine. The government never did pay me much for enforcing the law in Dodge, but even if they doubled it, there were times when I'd like to have quit. I sat there with Kitty and watched the 2 men at the bar. They had a drink, then they shook hands, and then Hack walked out. I got up, and I followed him.
Following me, Matt?
Yeah, Hack.
What for?
Where you staying?
Dodge House.
Huh?
Got a room.
I'd like to talk to you.
Street'll do.
Okay. Dolph was trying to form a mob this afternoon, Hack. He wanted to raid his brother out of jail.
I heard about it.
When I went to break it up, I heard him saying they'd be led by one of the best gunmen in the country. Now, that wouldn't be Dolph himself.
No. He's afraid of guns.
He meant you, didn't he, Hack?
I hadn't talked to him yet. He was just guessing I'd come in.
And you have?
Not with no mob. I told him that. I don't work with mobs. You should have known better than to say that.
How do you work, Hack?
Alone, by myself. I'm a pretty good gunman, Matt.
Yeah, I know. It saved my life once, you're being a good gunman.
Yeah. Matt, turn his brother loose. I get paid if you do.
Look, Hack, Lee Trumbo murdered a man. He's going to stand trial for it.
I don't get paid if he stands trial.
But you get paid for shooting me?
That's what Dolph said. That was his deal.
Well?
Oh, they tell me you're better with a gun you used to be, Matt.
Hack, I don't want to fight you.
Afraid, Matt? How'd you get to be marshal, anyways?
It's a job. I took it.
Well, I've been offered a job, too, and I took it.
Yeah, but you had better jobs, Hack.
Oh, it's been bothering me some, Matt. I took an awful chance saving your life once. Now I got to take another to kill you. That don't make much sense, does it?
Look, Hack, why don't you forget it, huh? Go on back to Wagon Bed Springs. I'll lend you some money to see you through.
No, it ain't that easy, Matt. I back out on this, the word will get around. Nobody'll hire me for nothing no more. My reputation won't be worth crowbait.
Did Billy the Kid pay you to kill men?
Of course not. Of course not. That was for pleasure. You know how I hate John Chisholm.
And you come down a long way, Hack. Selling your gun.
I killed a man for pay over to La Junta. Didn't bother me none.
Who was he?
I don't know. Some gambler. Pretty good gunman, though.
Tell me something, Hack. Did Dolph say how his brother murdered that man here?
Dolph claims he didn't do it at all.
Well, there were 2 witnesses who saw him do it. The man was a buffalo skinner, unarmed. He didn't even have a knife on him. But he refused to buy Lee Trumbo a drink, so Lee shot him.
Unarmed?
That's right.
Shot an unarmed man?
You think it over, Hack. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night. A man like Hack Prine had his own peculiar sense of honor. The idea of shooting me seemed to bother him less than the fact that Lee Trumbo had killed an unarmed man. Later that night, I heard he'd been seen having an argument with Dolph. So I figured I'd won. But another killing in Dodge, either me or Hack, had been avoided. Until early next morning, word came that a man had been shot at the Dodge house. I sent Chester on over while I went up and got Doc Adams.
How do you know the man isn't already dead, Mac?
I don't know, Doc.
Well, it doesn't matter. I'll probably make more money off of him dead than alive.
No?
Well, I get paid for autopsies, don't I?
Sure.
Yeah, but just try to collect for the ones I keep alive. Just you try it.
And I'm glad I don't have to, Doc, but I still notice you buy a new buggy every spring.
Oh, yes, wear it out before racing across the prairie, delivering babies, setting bones, digging out bullets, delivering babies.
Well, exercise keeps the man young, Doc.
It's a good thing I don't depend on sympathy to keep me young.
Here we are.
Dylan? Dylan, oh, hold on.
Where is he, Chester?
In that room right there, number 12. And you know who it is? It's Ole.
Ole?
Yes, sir. And Hack Prine shot him.
What?
It's Hack's room, Mr. Dillon. He did it all right.
And let's take a look. Where's Hack now, Chester?
I don't know, sir. Nobody's seen him for the past hour. I kept everybody out of the room, Mr. Dillon. All right, now stand aside here, boys.
It's Ole, all right. He's dead, Matt. Real dead.
3-4 hours, probably.
Nobody heard a shot or nothing, Mr. Dillon. But when the clerk come on duty about an hour ago, he saw Hack Prine walk out of here.
Why anybody would want to kill poor little Ole, I do not understand.
I'll bet I know, Mr. Dillon.
What, Chester?
You didn't talk Hack out of trying to kill you after all. He went back to Dolph last night and told him you'd take the job. Then he figured the only way to get you into a fight was to shoot somebody so you'd have to come after him.
Yeah, maybe. Come on, let's start looking for him.
We will return for the last act of Gunsmoke in just a moment. What a pair! Les Paul and Mary Ford, America's most popular recording duo. You ought to know, you buy millions of their records. Les and Mary say, Chesterfield's for me.
I guess you could call us a real Chesterfield family. I've been enjoying them now for over 6 years.
It's over 15 years for me. We believe it's the best cigarette ever made.
Yes, they have just that refreshing taste and mildness that we like.
What a pair! Chesterfield King Size, now at the new low price, and Chesterfield Regular. America's most popular two-way cigarette.
it. I guess Alfraganza is the only place we haven't looked in, Mr. Dillon. He's got to be there, unless maybe he's going to try to bushwhack you.
Hack may be a paid killer, Chester, but he'll always face his man head on.
Yes, sir. That come right from Alfraganza.
Yeah.
Mr. Dillon, there's Hack. He's coming out.
Yeah. All right, get off the street, Chester.
Yes, sir.
Morning, Matt.
Hello, Hack.
Just killed a man in that saloon there.
Dolph Trumbo?
I killed him. I gave him a chance, but he wouldn't draw. I killed him anyways.
That's too bad, Hack.
Ain't no man gonna frame me.
I never thought you killed Ole, but I wanted to hear you say so.
How'd you know I didn't do it?
It wouldn't be your style to kill a defenseless little fellow like that, would it?
Of course not.
So while you were out gambling last night, Dolph killed him and dumped him in your room.
I found him there, and then I went after Dolph. Ain't no man can do that to me.
Hack, according to the law, you murdered Dolph. I'm going to have to arrest you.
What?
You're going to have to stand trial for it.
Oh, no, Matt. No, sir, I ain't going to jail. Not me, Matt. Never.
I'm a lawman, Hack. I got to arrest you.
Matt, I told Dolph last night I wasn't going to take his job. I told him I was going to leave town.
You're under arrest, Hack.
All right. I guess you've got to do it. Let's go for it, Matt.
No, Hack, no.
Let's see what happens.
Hack. Hack.
Oh, you're sure good, Matt. You're awful good.
Yeah.
Better this way, Matt, than getting paid to fight you.
Sure. Sure it is.
There weren't no reason to fight you. Not that way. I can't see you no more, Matt. It's like being underwater. I can't see nothing.
Mr. Dillon, that was awful good shooting. I never seen nothing as fast as that in my whole life. My, I'll bet he didn't know what hit him. The way he spun around there when you... Mr. Dillon? Mr. Dillon, what's the matter? Mr. Dillon? My.